What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new, my name is Charles. I own mXrevival, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to install a top end and go over a few things that a lot of us, like myself when I was younger, completely overlook. When I was a kid, riding two strokes, I would just slap the piston in, the gaskets, close the thing up and go ride. I had no respect for piston to cylinder bore clearances, ring gap, squish band. I didn't know what any of that stuff was. Those were the good old days. Everything always ran, but in today's video, I want to show you some of that stuff as well. All this footage was filmed on my amazing customer Corey's O2 CR250. He sent this build in from Oregon. Unbelievably clean CR250 to begin with, and he's allowing me to mod it from the ground up. So just finished rebuilding his engine pretty much with this video. Anyways, all that footage was filmed for All Balls Racing Group. Some of you guys know I do how-to videos for them, so the footage might seem a little toned down, maybe, I don't know, maybe it still sounds like me, but if you're new, or if you're not new, either way, the meat and potatoes of this video was filmed for them. So hope you enjoy it. I hope you learned something. If you guys are new and you don't know about the giveaways, everything that I filmed in this video for Corey, your giveaway CR250 is basically running the exact same setup. So 2003 CR250 giveaway, 04 RM250 giveaway. I'll leave some links below. I can be very long-winded. I'm not going to do that to you guys today. Check it out when you get some free time. We give away bikes and we give away other shit every single month if it's not a bike. So check it out. This is actually yours. And I'm going to do the exact same thing to this as I did in the video on Corey's bike today. Enjoy it. Okay, here we are on the bench. We've got a gorgeously vapor blasted cylinder, all refinished. Got a nice spicy head that's going on this thing. This bike is going to rip, especially after today. With our missing link, we've got the Vertex piston kit from All Balls Racing. Let's take a second and check out what comes inside of one of these piston kits so you know what to expect. Now, the first thing you're going to get, of course, is your piston. And there are different sizes of pistons. We'll get into that in a little bit. This is a B piston from Vertex. You'll also get some piston rings. Some pistons only come with one ring, just depends. In this case, we have two. You've got a couple of circlips here that are going to hold the wrist pin in. Where the heck's the wrist pin? Way over here. This will come in your piston kit as well. And of course, a couple of stickers for the toolbox. So those are the bare essentials you're going to get in a piston kit. Let's check out some of the things you do not get in a piston kit. Now, when you're doing a top end job like this, you're going to need a wrist pin bearing. You can get one of these from Vertex as well. You're also going to need some gaskets. Top end gasket kit will commonly get you everything you need. So these are not included. I think everything together, about 150 bucks to do a two-stroke top end. That's why we love them. Also very simple, cheap, easy, and fun. So now that you know what comes in a kit and what doesn't come in a kit, don't forget to get your bearing. Don't forget to get your gaskets. Let's go ahead and jump into the job so I can show you some of the tools involved. And of course, see how this sucker looks on the bike. It's going to be absolutely ridiculous. Okay, first step before you do anything else, before any of this stuff even gets anywhere near your bike, we have to do something very important with the piston rings, and that will be measuring the ring end gap. And what that is once these rings are installed inside the cylinder, there's going to be a gap left over at the end where these rings touch of a certain size, and we need to verify that they are either not too small or too close of a gap, or too wide, too big of a gap. And so the first thing you do is you go ahead and install the ring into the cylinder bore. And so now that we have the ring started inside the cylinder, we're going to go ahead and take the piston, the square end, the top, and get this ring into the cylinder. Honda doesn't give you an actual measurement, but it's about a ½ inch into the bore, no more than an inch. I'm liking that. You guys can see the ring inside the cylinder there, a little gap there at the bottom where that blue shop rag is. We're going to measure that gap for both rings. Now, in order to do that, you're going to need some feeler gauges. You can pick these up just about anywhere. They even have them at auto parts stores. So we're going to use the Honda manual. Their numbers are going to be 16 thousandths to 22 thousandths of a gap. That would be the sweet spot for that ring gap in there. We want to hit those numbers, no greater, no less. So I have an array of feeler gauges here. These are going to allow me to check through that range and see if I'm either above or below that specified target as well to find out if we have a problem. So I'll go ahead and grab the 16 thousandths. This is the minimum size allowed by Honda, and drop this feeler gauge right into that gap in the ring. You see the gap? I'm dropping it right into that gap, and I'm looking for some drag to see if it's too tight, too large. Go to 17 thousandths, still no drag, and work your way up to that allowed specification from Honda of 22, 18, I'm getting a little bit of a nibble, 19 thousandths, and I'm getting a little bit more drag with 19, 20 thousandths, and right there, I'm getting some decent drag on both sides of this feeler gauge inside that gap at 20 thousandths. So I'm between the 16 thousandths and the 22 thousandths that Honda calls for. That ring is A-OK. Now with your piston, go ahead and push that ring out and install the next one. This ring checks out okay. Let's go ahead and install the next one. Same procedure. Compress it with your fingers, just get it started, and then use the blunt end of the piston to send that in about a ½ inch, like so. Go ahead and start the procedure all over again with your feeler gauges, 16 through 22. Start again with 16 thousandths, jump up to 18, still good, jump up to 20, a little bit of drag. Actually, we're getting nice drag, just like the other ring. So this one's spot on the same as the previous ring. These suckers are good to run. Send her home. So both these rings checked out perfect. Really nice to know that straight out of the box, both these rings were identical, about 20 thousandths of an inch ring end gap. That is almost right in the middle of the specified range from the Honda CR250 manual. So these are right in the sweet spot. Really cool, come out of the box. You don't need to file them if they're too tight, or get new rings if these were too large. Now, if these were too tight, they were under the 15.9 thousandths of an inch or the 16 thousandths of an inch that Honda manual recommends. What you risk is a seizure as the engine heats up and everything starts to expand. These ring ends get closer and closer together until, like I said, when they expand, they touch, they're swelling basically, they have nowhere else to go, and they create a seizure inside your piston bore. So usually that's about $500, $600, $700 worth of damage when that happens. So these are those little things I was referring to earlier that you should really check before you stuff this into your engine. Like I said, when I was younger, I would just plop these in. I didn't know about any of this stuff. They always ran. Thankfully, I never had a bad seizure, but a really quick and easy check can save you a lot of money. Again, really nice to know these came out of the box the perfect size. Now, one more thing on that note, there are different sized pistons and there are different sized cylinders, and this can be a little bit more confusing. It's a similar concept to the piston rings expanding too much and creating a seizure. For example, Honda's cylinder A. There's also a cylinder B. Those are the sizes. And then also the Vertex piston, they have A and B. This is a B. Now you do need some more in-depth and special tools to measure the piston bore accurately as well as the piston accurately. Calipers, unfortunately, digital calipers are close, but they're not going to get you right down to the thousandths of an inch that you need to read for. And so I actually have a hack for you guys. When you send your cylinder out, whether it needs to be replated or not, you can send something like this, your cylinder, to Power Seal USA and tell them, hey, either you'd like your bore measured and they'll send it back with a bore matched piston, or if your cylinder is already nuked, you can send it to Power Seal. They will re-nickel the inside of this, which is basically the coating that's inside when you get your bike brand new, and they will then also bore match a piston to it. So if you don't have the special tools, that's another way to ensure that these two fit together properly with enough gap in there to not have a seizure from the piston being too large inside of the cylinder itself. Now, to make things even more confusing, the Honda A cylinder is the larger of the two cylinders they made. The B would be just a little bit smaller than the A. Now, inversely, Yamaha has cylinders A, B, C, and D, and A, B, C, and D get larger as they go. Same with the pistons, so it's actually opposite from the Honda. So pay attention to that, very important. I've already verified that these two are perfect for each other, so we're actually ready to install this stuff now. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Okay, here we are on the upper end of our connecting rod where all of the top end work is going to take place today. You may notice that I have a brand new shop towel down inside the crankshaft area. That is so that I don't drop these clips in there. These hold the piston wrist pin inside the piston. The other thing we're going to want to verify is that you have your cylinder alignment dowels on these studs here. The next thing you're going to want to do is grab your cylinder base gasket and go ahead and install that. Remember, this does not come in the piston kit. You're going to need a top end gasket kit to accompany your piston kit. This one's directional. One side of the holes are larger to accommodate these dowels here. Now, it's very important to know when we install this piston, there is an arrow on the top right there. That arrow needs to face forward. I've seen them installed rearward before. This would be backwards. And sometimes it'll still run when the piston's backwards, although by that time usually the lower ring has been ripped out of the ringland by the exhaust port on the cylinder. So make sure that your arrow is pointing forward. Then I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of premix. Any brand premix you use is just fine. And start lubricating some of these parts. For example, a little dab of premix in my finger. I'm going to start lubricating these holes where the wrist pin goes inside the piston. And something else I like to do, I will take one of these clips that hold the wrist pin in, and I will install one first without the piston being on the connecting rod and before the wrist pin goes in the piston. This just helps things later. There's less juggling and risk of dropping these inside the engine if there's only one to deal with. Another note, the opening of the clip, you don't want it to face down or up, the direction of travel of the piston. You want it to be sideways. This will keep it in there in the event that it were to shake out, is much less likely. Go ahead and compress that thing with your fingers a little bit. Start it in there and then roll it in. You can then take the wrist pin itself through the other side and get that pin to locate inside of its grooves. Go ahead and take the wrist pin itself and locate that clip. There's the snap. That sucker is set. Now there's just one less clip to deal with. Like I said, when we're hovering over your engine, this thing will go in and that pin will already be in place on the other side. Next step, you're going to want to go ahead and take your wrist pin bearing and get that lathered up with premix as well. Just like the base gasket or the top end gasket kit, these do not come in the piston kit like we mentioned earlier. Once that sucker's all lubed up, you can stick it right inside the top of that connecting rod. Now it's time to install the piston, and remember, make sure that arrow is facing forward. Now I've got my wrist pin, the clip is already installed on your side. I got my wrist pin started. Going to sneak it through that bearing in the connecting rod, and she's in. Okay, we are on the other side of the piston, and as you guessed, we need to put this other clip in. Make sure you're very patient because you don't want that clip falling down into the bottom end of your engine. It's not fun. Now again, go ahead and pre-compress that clip, and there are some special tools for this to help. I'll show you a trick in a second. And get it started inside your piston. We're just going man hand style today. Like I mentioned, there are circlip set tools for top ends. Just so happens that the 13mm socket is the exact same size as the wrist pin. In this case, you can use it and get that clip set in place. I think I heard the click or the snap. Make sure it's in the groove. Oh yeah, we're looking good. Take a quick second to double check your work and make sure both those clips are in the groove all the way around and that you don't have half the clip hanging out of the groove. You know what's going to happen if you don't check that and it's not right. Now that we verified our clips are in properly, we can go ahead and get rid of these clean shop towels. And we're on the home stretch. All we need to do now is install our piston rings. We've already checked to make sure we're going to have proper ring end gap. You guys may be able to see there is a letter on top of that ring there. T. Those face up. Get a little dab of premix. Go ahead and lube those rings up. Make sure the letter's facing upward. And then there are going to be two locating pins on these pistons. One here, one there. And when we install these piston rings, you can see the notches in the ends there. Those locating pins are going to live right inside of those little grooves. So we'll go ahead and install ring number 1, the lower. Gently flex it over the piston. Don't worry if it gets half in the lower ring, half in the upper. Just use your fingernail, lift it up, get it to drop in. Perfect. Letter is facing up. I'm going to go ahead and lubricate that second ring. Install it the same way. I'm starting with the ring right at the locating pin so it holds it in place, and then barely opening the piston ring up to get it over the top of the piston. Now both of our rings are installed. All right, we are ready to install our cylinder. I'm just smearing some premix around inside the bore. Get everything nice and lubed up so it all goes together real easy. Okay, now what we need to do is go ahead and make sure that the ends of our piston rings are right up against those locating pins. We're just going to squeeze these piston rings closed, and like I said, make sure those ends are right on the locating pins. You can go ahead and drop your piston down a little bit if it helps you get your cylinder into place. It usually does. I'm going to go ahead and double check that my top ring is compressed and the ends of that piston ring are in that locating pin location. I've done that. Now I've got to do the same thing to the second ring. As you can see, you can just use your fingers for this. You don't need a special tool to do a top end on a two-stroke in order to compress the piston rings. Get a visual on that bad boy and take your time. You can definitely force things out of whack. Gently walk the cylinder over both rings like so. Lower the whole assembly and get it onto those studs. Now it's time to go ahead and get those cylinder base nuts installed. We're going to get this thing snugged down to the manual's torque. Then we're going to cycle the piston through there real quick inside the cylinder. Make sure we don't hear any crazy noises. That'll pretty much verify that our piston rings are in the right locations up against those locating pins. Okay, now we can go ahead and button up that cylinder. We're going to go ahead and apply torque in a crisscross pattern, and then front to back. Crisscross again, back to the other side. The torque spec on the Honda is 29 foot-pounds. Okay, there's our piston installed. Now we can go ahead and cycle the Kickstarter. Listen for any crazy sounds. Make sure everything is operating smoothly, as it is. Always cool to see the inside of an engine doing what it does. Just something about it. So you guys can hear nothing, which means it's nice and smooth, which is a good thing. It's time to install that cylinder head. Talk about some other very important specs and ways to optimize the power character and make your jetting a lot easier too. Let's get into that. So the next step in this process, in this case, this cylinder has dowels for the cylinder head. We need to go ahead and put these in. Your bike may or may not have them. Haven't seen one without them yet. One on each side. Real simple. That's going to help the head locate when it does get installed in just a second. Now it's time to go ahead and install the cylinder head. If you guys have a Honda and you're using the stock cylinder head, you will have a gasket just like this plate type. However, if you're an RM250 guy, YZ250 guy, or you are upgrading to an aftermarket cylinder head, such as this fat head, the Honda in this case gets converted to an O-ring type. You can see the grooves in there, and one O-ring, two O-rings, so we will not be using the regular plate type, gasket, or OEM cylinder head. Another important note, you can see this small hole here and this small hole here. Those are for dowels, a lot like the ones that located the cylinder on the base studs. Those have already been installed and the top of the cylinder, so pay attention that yours are there. Now we've got one more important measurement, and that is the squish band. Basically, when your cylinder head is installed, let me grab one of those bad boys. There's going to be a gap between the cylinder and the piston inside this area here, and that will be a measurable area called the squish band. Now, Honda does not actually give you a spec in the manual, but it's a little bit loose from the factory. That may be why a lot of you guys that are still running the Mikuni on this case-reed type engine have a lot of trouble with it. If you can tighten up your squish band, you can get the bike to run better. It'll be much easier to jet, and that's what we're going to measure right now. And as you can see, this cylinder head just stole my dowels. All right, so how do we measure squish? Well, we're going to take this solder here, 1.5 millimeter solder, cut it into 4 small pieces, and place it onto 4 locations of the piston. Now, 4 locations because when the piston comes up with the head installed and smashes the solder, we don't want the piston to be able to rock in any direction. So we're going to put the cylinder head on with the solder installed, get this piston to kiss the solder and smash it. Then we can measure it, and then we know what our squish is currently at. We can alter it from there. So go ahead and get yourself some grease, and we're going to put these little pieces of solder all the way out to the edge of the cylinder wall. This grease is going to keep them from going places we don't want them to. Now right now I'm using the Kickstarter to move this, but I'm going to move down to the stator side on the back side of the cylinder over here and rotate it with a bar where the electrical stator is going to be. That way I have control over rocking it back and forth. With the Kickstarter, I just get up and down. With the stator, back where I'm standing over here, I can actually rock the engine back and forth and not just go through one stroke as such. All right, got our piston back up. We'll go ahead and place our little pieces of solder in the grease. Again, bring this down just a little bit so I can get those right on the edge of the cylinder. That's where the squish band is going to be the tightest, or the profile inside the cylinder head will be the tightest right there at the ends. And now we've got our final solder in there. And again, this is 1.5 millimeter solder. Stock squish is about 1.6 millimeter, which is a little bit large. Now you guys can see my arm back here. I am rocking the piston with the stator nut right now. That's because I don't want the piston to go all the way down and have some solder go in some ports. I can actually rock it back and forth right here with the nut instead of, like I mentioned, one solid stroke through up and down with the Kickstarter. I hope you guys give this a try. You'll get a lot more out of your bike this way. Obviously, it'll run with the stock squish, and we'll talk about how to adjust that pretty soon. But if you can tighten that up just a little bit within reason without causing damage, your bike's going to run a lot better. Spicy. Now you guys may have noticed I did not install the O-rings yet. It is not necessary. They're going to be compressed and they do not lift the cylinder. for lack of a better explanation, in terms of getting this measurement. So go ahead and lay down your copper crush washers, or if you don't have these because you're using the stock Honda setup, go ahead and install the cylinder head nuts, the non-acorn type. Next step, go ahead and set torque on these. You're going to want to do that in a crisscross pattern, and there's a click there, back across, click on the other corner, kind of like putting a wheel on a truck, just crisscross, set torque all the way around. Another one, jump across the other side, and click. Here comes another one, click, and one more. If you'd like, I do this thing called Around the World, where I just check them all one more time. Probably not necessary, but it never hurts to be thorough. So there we go. There's our trip around the world. This sucker's ready. Okay, here we are on the other side. I'm going to be using the end of the crankshaft here, 17mm nut that holds the stator in place. And I'm going to get that piston to go upwards and make that solder kiss the head. Reason you use solder, it's ultra soft. So there's a little kiss right there, and I rolled through with almost no resistance. So that tells me probably just under 1.5 mil now, since that was 1.5 mil solder. All right, next step, we'll go ahead and get the cylinder head back off. I'm going to loosen it up in a crisscross pattern as well. And we're going to go ahead and measure those little crushed pieces of solder. See where we're at. Everything is loose. Go ahead and pop this sucker off. Try not to drop any of my crush washers. Bring this piston back up rather than down and back up. Now I can grab those little pieces of solder, roll them off on a rag, get them nice and clean so we can put a caliper on the end that is crushed. All right guys, next step, grab some calipers, and we're going to go ahead and measure those little pieces of solder and see what we come up with. We know that stock is about 1.65mm, which is a little loose, and I want to see what these guys are at here. Make sure this is the right side. I've got a 1.27. Not sure if you guys can see that. Flip this solder over, make sure I'm using the right end to measure. We know this base is 1.5. Looks like, yeah, I got 1.5 on the other side. We'll zero this out. Measure that end again where it got flattened by the piston. 1.26. Measure another one. 1.27. So I know I'm on the right side. That's a little fat on the next one. Measure the other side. 1.27, 1.26. Okay guys, so that's how you measure squish and find out where you're at. Now you might be wondering naturally, well, how do I alter squish? I only have the gaskets that the top end kit came with, which is the tuning tool that helps you raise or lower the cylinder or raise or lower the cylinder head. And so you can alter this squish value by raising or lowering the cylinder with gaskets. In this case, like I said, we just have what we have. Now, you can go this route, you get an aftermarket head, and squeeze a little more juice out of your dirt bike. And there's nothing wrong with the stock setup. It's going to be reliable. It's just not optimized. They build them that way to be safe. They build them that way to be reliable. In some cases, the squish is too tall, too loose, YZ250, where you actually have to run race gas to keep it from pinging, even though it's stock. So if you can clean up this squish band just a little bit, and we were at 1.27mm, which is 50 thousandths, generally speaking, on a 250cc two-stroke, that's going to give you a lot more bang for your buck. It's going to make your bike way easier to jet. I mentioned the Mikuni TMX38 woes that you see our 250 guys have sometimes earlier. So clean this up a little bit with either an aftermarket cylinder head, or you can have your cylinder head that you own currently machined at a machine shop. The thing is with that is that if you get them to recut the profile and alter the squish band for you, if they don't add the volume back into the dome, they're also going to be giving you a higher compression setup as well. So depending on what you want, lots of different ways to do it. In the case of this bike, we are set up just about perfect. My customer wants to run 100 octane race gas, and this thing's probably going to run like a wild animal, so I'm really excited. Now you can go even tighter, but if you're going to do that, you need to be aware of the fact that things, just like the piston rings, are expanding and contracting with heat, and as things get hotter, you risk letting that piston expand and come up and contact the cylinder head. So you don't want things to hit each other, cause catastrophic failures, get yourself hurt. So make sure you look a little more into this stuff This is just a top end video. Just wanted to give you a little extra pepper. And if you want to give this a try, I think you should. 50 thousandths, give it a run on the old 252 stroke. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. As I mentioned, amazing O2 CR250 build for my buddy Corey. Thank you so much, Corey, if you're watching. I'm sure you are. I'm going to send you the link to this. And again, if you guys want to win one of these O3 CR250 build, same setup, same engine rebuild, the whole deal, except your transmission has actually gone to cryo heat. Watch the last episode if you want to learn how to build a transmission and put it together and then put it in the bike. At any rate, again, 15 bucks a month, mXrevival monthly. Every month that we don't give away a dirt bike because they need to be built, I'll be giving away a tool, a part, product, whatever this month for the month of August. MSR NXT gear set, pants, jersey, gloves, brand new gear set. Last month was a Velocity Components grease puck tool. Month before that I gave away 2 Tusk stud remover and installer tools. So I'm trying to make sure you guys get good stuff. A lot of the stuff I'm either riding in, like the gear, or the tools I'm using in the shop. And it's been really fun so far. So thank you to everyone who has signed up. I really, really appreciate that. As I always say, you are fueling a dream that's just, it's up in here and you guys are helping me get it out. So thank you for everything. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video. Next steps for your CR250 and RM250 giveaway bikes. Weston Pike at RG3 Boise has a suspension for both of those. So that's going to come back. We're going to have some more candy to show off. Really excited. And then thank you so much to All Balls Racing Group as well, because they're also helping build those bikes with the exact same Vertex piston kit, Japanese crank bearings, so on and so forth. Same to Rocky Mountain. A lot of the stuff is coming from them. So go ahead and check out the playlists below for your RM250 and CR250 giveaways. I'll leave a link to the website. And guys, thank you so much for watching. Shred safe. I will catch you in the next video.